All right, feels good to be back. Another episode of the Inner Circle podcast. Um, First and foremost, man, I want to give a shout out to B Money 101. My prayers go out to him and his family. His mother was in a car accident last night, and she is right now in the hospital, and he's been with her all this time. So prayers and well wishes go out to B Money, the B Money family. My understanding is she's doing okay. She's doing well and things like that. But we just want to make sure that everything is good with our brother, and he is not here tonight. A lot of things to discuss, man. It's been one hell of a week. It just feels like this Weinstein thing has just caused a domino effect of any and anybody who wants to come out about something that's happened to them. They have suddenly gotten the coverage. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all. I'm just saying that a lot of people have now gotten the courage to speak up about some of the transgressions and some of the things that have affected them in their lives. Was some sort of sexual assault, some sort of sexual abuse, some sexual harassment, whatever it may have been, from people in positions of power. And it's really has started a trickle effect, and it's hitting the video game industry. I'm completely blown away by a lot of this stuff, so we're definitely going to discuss that tonight. We're definitely going to talk about the Shannon Loftus interview. We'll touch on BC, and we will touch on a few other things. Very grateful to have Iron Lord Addict with us tonight, and of course, my man Randall Thor from the Xbox 2. And of course, you already know the team that's already here. So we're going to go ahead and get the show started for you guys. We'll try to do a Q&A after if we have time. Make sure you guys give us a thumbs up. We appreciate the support. And let's get the show started. Welcome to the Inner Circle podcast, the premier podcast for Xbox. I'm your host, KRSKLL with Anchorman V.
Hey, everybody.
And of course, B Money 101, who's unfortunately not able to make it with us tonight. And this is the Inner Circle podcast. Tonight, we have with us guests Iron Lord Addict from the Iron Lord podcast, as well as Tick Family. What's going on, Iron Lord Addict?
What's going on, you guys?
And of course, the man with the million, Mr. Randall Thor. What's going on, brother? How's everything?
What is going on, Cal? It's nice to be finally on the Inner Circle, although I don't know if Anchorman's going to like this very much, because usually when me and him speak, something bad happens the next day.
I feel like since it's like public like this, like it's really, really bad now. Like we looking at like
it's gonna be catastrophic.
Like Xbox shutting down bad now.
No, it's gonna be so bad in the morning when we wake up, we find out the whole sexual abuse thing's been going on. It's gonna happen at Xbox. We're gonna hear it's gonna be horrible. We're gonna hear it.
God, please don't let it happen at Xbox. The last thing you want is the fanboys to run with this stuff with Microsoft. Jesus, I couldn't deal with it. Listen, crazy stuff going on right now. Let's just jump right into the fire, man. This NeoGaf thing is the hottest topic right now. People are feeling like they are free. And if you're on Twitter or if you're listening to us via MP3, you're not on Twitter or Facebook. Yeah, no, it's pretty brutal. It's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad and everything with everything. I mean, obviously, if you heard about this person who came out on Twitter and started to tweet about something that had happened to her while she was on a trip with a person who was semi-famous. And basically, the gist of it is they both got drunk, happened to go take a shower because she was sick. She wasn't feeling well. She got in the shower, and this person came up behind her in the shower naked as well and tried to make advances on her. She already had a boyfriend. Mm-hmm. She felt like she led him on in any type of way. But once he was rejected, he stepped out of the shower, and since then he had shunned her. And come to find out, we believe, at least this is what we're understanding, is that the person is the head and I believe the owner or the head of NeoGaf. And because of this, it's had a major impact on the website. and on the forum, and it seems they've had a ton of mods leave the site. A lot of people left the site. The site crashed. It was down for some time. And so many people, they are really talking out about this. People are distraught. People are upset. I mean, I've seen people comment about, finally getting everything they've ever wanted to say out about how many accounts they had and, tired of being banned and cursing out different moderators. And some people are distraught because they feel like this was the only thing that kept them sane on the internet. I've literally seen someone say, I hate all of you people because this is what kept me sane on the internet. I'm going to kill myself and my blood is on your hands. True story. People themselves, because they're not farmers falling apart. It is insane right now. I can't believe this is happening. What is happening to the entertainment industry as a whole? Like, how could this happen, man? Like, I'm just really blown by everything that's back to back to back to back. These dominoes just falling so frequently.
I mean, hey, people have been waiting on for so long. I think the NeoGaf thing is just a mixture of just people have not been allowed to say anything bad about NeoGaf for so long on NeoGaf, and now that it's like now there's an opportunity and just it's all imploding. Everybody who's had anything to say about NeoGaf is going full kamikaze mode. I'm taking myself out. I'm taking the ship with me, that kind of deal. And with the entertainment industry as a whole, though, it really is insane to see how the Harvey Weinstein thing has just blown up on like every single level. Whole another level I don't think any of us really expected it to go to, and it's absolutely insane, honestly. It's in one regard it's kind of deserved. It kind of needed to happen, but on the other end it's going almost a bit too quickly, and so like everyone's almost like a flavor of the day kind of thing when another revelation comes out, because like in 2 days it's going to be something completely different, something no one else is going to remember anymore. I think it's going a little too quickly, but yeah, it's going crazy, man.
I feel like that when it comes to this whole thing, like, the whole thing that happened at, Naughty Dog, it's like a domino effect. One person comes out, is brave enough to tell their tales. You're going to get more people. I wouldn't be surprised if this happens again in the next couple weeks.
NeoGaf was such a dominant force in like video game discussion. I've been going there for since 2005.
I can proudly say I've never been on NeoGaf, not even on the website.
Sir. I was there for,
it's looking like I'll never be on it now.
I was there for news and leaks, okay? Because they were on top of that, right? But there was always kind of a seedy underbelly of NeoGaf. Certain members were mods, then unmodded because of abuse of power. A few famous mods were recently arrested for child pedophilia, at which the creator. Yeah, so like there's some serious stuff that Evilore, who is the owner of NeoGaf, kind of swept under the rug. And I never thought I'd be here talking about the implosion and the destruction of one of the biggest gaming forums out there. It's so weird to like try to go on the NeoGaf and it loads like a snail, looking and seeing like all the mods and admins are gone, basically making a statement against Evilore. And I wonder how this kind of affects the industry moving forward, because NeoGaf was a large part of a video game discussion. I mean, I've talked to, you couldn't get him on the show tonight, but I talked a lot with Tim Dog. And Tim Dog feels that NeoGaf was very largely responsible for some of the hate that Xbox originally received back in 2013. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Like
Cal,
Steve
Anchor,
I remember this.
Of course.
So it's kind of it's funny to see all this kind of happen. And to Anchorman's point, like, all it takes is one person to come out and say something, and then other people feel emboldened. Not saying that these are false accusations or whatever, but sometimes you need the courage and to speak up if you've been wronged against. And people like internalize some of the things they've been through in life.
The thing
you
is,
know,
people don't want to be the spotlight, but if other people are doing it, they won't. Anyone solely won't truly be the spotlight. It'll be like everyone together doing it.
So it's a strange day. It's a strange day. Like I said, I didn't think I'd see it ever happen, but I won't be sad because some of the stuff he's getting accused of over there is disgusting, in my opinion. So,
Yeah.
It's crazy because the industry being known for video games, and we've always, for a very long time, it's always been an industry of men, and we've been trying to build up this industry of being inclusive of not only minorities but women, and putting a spotlight on not just women protagonists in games, but women writers and women directors and things like that. And I'm sitting up here and I think about back in the day with the Gate situation. I forget what it was called. What was the Gamergate? With Gamergate, right? Gamergate was a big deal, because you're talking about somebody who was, at the time doing sexual favors for reviews and things like that. And you look back at those things and how critical gamers were of that, and how that really just changed the industry and the way we looked at certain things. And I think that one thing led to such a big, as far as trying to make sure you put women at the forefront of gaming with protagonists, writers, developers. They even have women in gaming events and things like that. Now you're talking about the things that they have to go through of dealing with people in power, just to get a leg up, who may be not as talented as them, or just because they're just women in general, and this is men that has position over them. Even men, because the guy NeoGaf was a man. I don't know if he's a homosexual or anything like that. According to the report, we assume that it's a male that made a pass at him, so it was a male on male situation. People in positions of power seem to be able to impose themselves on other people. And when they get rejected, you not have to worry about, will you get blackballed from the industry that you've worked so hard to get into? And the video game industry isn't big. Like, when you really think about all the companies out there, first of all, so many companies are being closed. Companies are being shut down. So unless you're an independent developer, which there's a lot of independent developers, there's not a lot of big AAA publishers anymore. You know what I'm saying? Them on all of your hands that are truly, truly out there, that are major players when it comes to publishing. If you were to get blackballed from one of these companies, position or spot anywhere in the industry other than going completely independent, that's a very scary feeling for somebody that's worked so hard to get there. I'm just trying to figure out, why are these people doing this in the first place? Like, what is the purpose, and what makes them feel that they can impose themselves and impose their will on people that they are in weaker positions or lower standing than them? What does that, what do they gain from doing this?
Probably the position of power. A lot of these people that have had these accusations made against them are in power of wherever respective company they work for.
Yeah, I agree. I think it comes from a place of wanting to be powerful, or maybe not having certain things when you weren't. I mean, because if you look at the NeoGaf guy, he was fat before he owned NeoGaf, right? Then he came into money and lost a lot of weight. So he probably didn't really deal with a lot of women, right? Probably felt rejected earlier. So he went through that change. All of a sudden became rich. All of a sudden worked out because he had the time, and he lost all the weight. And with his newfound money and power, he abused it. That's kind of a case in a lot of other areas where people suddenly come into like power or fame or fortune or things like that. It's what I find interesting, though. I don't know if you saw the thread, was that it was okay to talk about Naughty Dog on NeoGaf and the sexual allegations for weeks. But as soon as the thread came up talking about this, it was always banned immediately. Like, why is one okay to talk about sexual, assault allegations against someone, but if you're talking about the owner of the site, it's not okay? Like, I kind of find that a little bit hypocritical. But, he's going to pay for it. He made a mistake, and the site's probably going to lose a ton of ad revenue. He's going to be blacklisted, like you said, if he wasn't already. And, karma. What goes around comes around, right?
Yeah, that was the whole controversial.
That was the whole controversial nature of NeoGaf in the first place. It was you were never allowed to talk bad about anything NeoGaf related, and you weren't even if they caught you even off of NeoGaf saying anything bad about NeoGaf, you were getting banned anyway.
You guys definitely don't want to make me.
It's a very tough situation
website anymore.
What?
I said, you guys talking about this definitely doesn't want me on this website anymore.
And this is why you should go to TICGN
what website?
to get all your gaming
NeoGaf?
news, right?
Yeah,
you don't want to go to NeoGaf for gaming news. You want to go to TICGN.com. See, there's your plug.
Absolutely. There you go. Absolutely. It's the only place to go to get your gaming news. Absolutely. Listen, it's terrible what's happening to the industry and the way people are being approached. Listen, you guys go to E3. Down anybody, but we see the people who go to E3. I'm not saying everybody's a looker. I'm not saying everybody's the most attractive person in the world, but listen, gaming is about geeks, nerds, fanatics, things like that. You see women, and most of the time, somebody that doesn't fit the profile, of somebody that may be the most attractive and things like that. And like Rand said, this guy might not have been the most attractive. He came to some money. He lost some weight. He got in shape. And now he felt with money and power, he could be in a position to impose himself on somebody. And they would be comfortable enough to give him what he wanted because he had the money and power. And when rejected, the only thing you can then do in turn is to try to hurt that person because you've been hurt.
He legitimately thought that she wasn't going to say anything
because
of who he was.
That really does suck. It's terrible that happened. And I know, listen, NeoGaf, I'm no fan of GAF. GAF has developers on there. You have people going there that leak information. Right. And because of that, there probably won't be a space for those type of leaks and those type of informations, when you kind of get those inside scoops other than guys like the Xbox 2 and, of course, Tick Podcasts and Iron Lords and the Tick Team. So you definitely want to tune in to get those scoops when you can. But with GAF gone, it kind of puts a lot of people in positions where it's like, people are kind of lost. It's probably a weird feeling if they don't recover from this. And it's unfortunate that it happened. It's unfortunate that it's happened to the industry. I'm afraid that we're going to see a lot more of this happening over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Here's the question.
I wouldn't be surprised if we get more allegations from not just places like Sony and GAF, but maybe Microsoft, maybe Nintendo.
I don't know.
Nintendo likes to keep things under wraps. They don't want you to show anything on YouTube. So, you just never know, man. Anything can happen. I would hate for this to continue in the industry that we love to talk about and be a part of. It is terrible. and I truly hope that it ends quickly because it's not good, man.
Yeah, I mean it's.
Well, I think anything can recover from anything.
Yeah, that's right.
Easily recover if he steps down and gives up. I think Gav can recover because it's one person.
They can recover, but the point is like
it's the same thing with the Naughty Dog allegations. Like if the guys at Naughty Dog, and though I didn't like the response that they gave, shut things down so quickly, but I mean, a lot of people by next year, Last of Us will be out. This will be forgotten unless court and sues them. Yeah, like this will be forgotten out of our memory, and guys will be. You know what I'm saying? So with NeoGaf, I think if the head of NeoGaf, Evil Lord, steps down,
yeah. Are you guys still
I
there?
didn't get any of that.
Hey, guys, there?
Yeah, it's a lot of lagging going on.
Yeah. One sec. Let me fix something real quick. All right, but yeah. In the meantime, so one of the issues that I've been taking a look at is with the whole NeoGaf.
Yeah, I'm here.
thing.
I must be lagging behind. Yeah, I must be lagging behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. One of the things I noticed with all the NeoGaf stuff in particular is that for me, I really kind of tuned out from NeoGaf after the whole Age of the Insider that was going on, like with Thue, Pete Dodd, the rest of them. That was the point where I was like, okay, this is not fun anymore. Where they were only there just to get the latest leak, to get that little extra scoop. And I remember in my more Xbox Zealot days doing videos on those guys and how they got exposed and all that kind of stuff. And I just that's when NeoGaf turned me off, because it was like, this is not fun anymore. You guys are all about ruining surprises and enjoyment of games coming out. It's not about like the news or anything like that anymore, or something big like that. It's like, we're gonna spoil storylines, we're gonna spoil parts about a game. It's like, it's not fun anymore, man. That's not enjoyable. And that's really where I tuned out.
Mm-hmm.
What I was referring to mainly is, obviously they can recover from this, but some people, especially I think it's a little bit different of a scenario from Naughty Dog and NeoGaf. Naughty Dog's a developer, and like once you tarnish like a published, a media outlet like that, some sources, like let's say Ubisoft, they take a huge against that. They're completely, there's no recovering from something like that. That's deem in their eyes. Like, do you think they'll lose certain, outlets permanently and never have that back, regardless what they do?
Right. Well, hopefully, man, I hope they can recover from this situation. Staple in the industry, whether good or bad, go the way of the dodo. It's unfortunate what happened. I think, again, if he steps down and he gives someone his position and they take over, they have an opportunity to recover. Continues to stay in that position because he's stubborn and he wants to lead and doesn't put sight ahead of himself, then yeah, I think Gaff is done. And that's an unfortunate situation. We're going to go ahead and move on.
It's done either way with him, because the issue with NeoGaf was that it's now begotten to the point where silence is killing him. Yeah, this thing only happened like 5-6 hours ago, and it's complete overturned mutiny right now. And he has not made a statement.
Are they seriously banning people who just stated on NeoGaf? Like, is that real?
Anyone who said anything.
Because that just looks way worse.
Yeah. It's just one of those things now where it's like the guy has not made a statement in 5 hours, and they're basically saying, yeah, that's an admission of guilt. And everyone's been making a joke about him waiting for the PR response. But yeah.
Yeah. It's a terrible situation over there at Gaff. Terrible situation for the industry, period, man. And like TF God stated, man, no one is actually talking about the dismissiveness of Sony's reply situation with the guy with Naughty Dog. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of been, again, like we said, it's people's already moved on from it. It was a hot topic. People brought it up. We talked about it, and now people have moved on, and no one's even talking about it anymore. It's truly up to these people to take it further. You can completely been wronged, and if you have the evidence, if you feel abused in any way, if it's affected you in any way, then yeah, you have to take it further. I think there's nothing worse than someone accusing somebody of something and then, just because it almost seems like you could possibly lie. Again, I'm not saying that what these people are saying are lies, but do understand there are people that sometimes do lie, and that is just unfortunate. A lot of times when it comes to these situations, as I said before, when we talked about the NeoGaf situation, when we talked about the Naughty Dog situation, you're guilty before you're even proven guilty, because they're so sensitive. It's such a sensitive subject that we immediately believe the person, the accuser. So I definitely hope that this gets taken further so we truly know what's happening. But like people said, I think an admission of guilt of not saying anything, not responding, not defending yourself, it says a lot. And it's not a good look at all. So unfortunate for him, and unfortunate for that situation. He made some terrible choices. Alcohol does that to you sometimes. And that's why I don't drink. Just what can I say? It's one of the reasons why I don't drink, because I don't want to put myself in those type of situations. I like to be conscious of what I'm doing at all times. So moving on. So listen, Microsoft just introduced, well, I don't want to say they introduced, but they might have leaked the OG Xbox games coming for backwards compatibility. And I like the lineup so far. I'm really impressed with it. Big titles on there: KOTOR, Ninja Gate, and Black. A lot of people are clamoring now for a lot of other games. Listen, I don't know if people remember, Tick Podcast broke this story years ago. Before this stuff even came out, we had Mikey Berry on the show, and we got a chance to talk with him about it. This is right after they had introduced Xbox 360 backwards compatibility, and we brought up the Xbox OG games and things that we want to see, because a lot of people know that I'm a big proponent for a remake of KOTOR, and Microsoft trying to get the exclusivity or time exclusivity for a new KOTOR. And unfortunately, that probably will never happen because EA and Disney are in cahoots, and they have all the licenses for those type of games. And I know that KOTOR is no longer lore. It's no longer a part of that universe. So we may never see another KOTOR again. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
No, not for long. The license expires in 2022.
Man, that's a long time, bro. 2022?
That's development time, bro.
Bro, but you said 2022, son. That's a long time.
He said not for long, like it was next week.
That's what I'm saying, right? He's like, not for long. In 2022, I'll be 41, bro. That's a long time, son.
Hey, old man, I can't help that. I can't help you're gonna be an old man.
Old man Logan, bro. I'm still youthful. Anyway, so listen, I'm excited. I'm really excited about this situation with OG Xbox games. I'm not a fan of going backwards. I'm really not. I would rather games be remade, and I don't mean remastered. I just mean remade. Like, I'm down to buy a new Shenmue, or I'm down to buy the new Final Fantasy that's being remade. I don't care about remasters. I don't really care about.
You got time for Shenmue? You have time to wait 20 years for Shenmue to come out?
I'm just saying. I'm using it as an example. Whenever Shenmue comes out, I will probably pick it up on my PS4. But I'm just saying that I'm down for that.
Most games, there's exceptions, Anchorman. Calm yourself.
Yeah, I think most games, especially when it comes to OG games, or 360 games, I normally wouldn't go back to play. But 16-bit games like Chrono Trigger, SNES games, I'll play those all day because they remind me of indie games. And I will go back and play some OG Xbox games because they remind me of indie games. And Knights of the Old Republic is a big deal to me. It's a big deal to me. And I truly hope that they bring back all these OG classics. So some of the games people talked about was like Otage, Brute Force, which I hated, by the way. What was some of the other games they said besides Ninja Gaiden 2?
Just say it for me. All you gotta do is just say it. All you gotta do is just gotta say it. That's it.
It doesn't matter. Knights of the Old Republic is the only relevant one.
No. There's another one.
Jet Force Gemini. Not Jet Force. Jet Set Radio.
He's not going to say
it. Jet Set Radio. And a few other games, man. So listen, what do you got?
I think there's one in particular.
OG Xbox compatibility, and do you think that it will have an impact the way that the Xbox 360 back compat had?
Honestly, I think it's more kind of like a PR move. Personally, it's the optics of No Man Left Behind that like we're bringing everything forward. It makes, like I said, it makes great optics. It looks good on paper, and it looks good to the community, saying, "Hey, you're not going to be left behind. When the next generation comes out, your Xbox One games are going to go with you. When the next generation comes out, your 360 games are going to come with you, and even the OG Xbox games are going to come with you," which is nice. It looks good. I don't think a lot of people are going to use it, but
here's my thing. Like, I understand where people go with the, the backwards compatibility. For example, I know Rand's not a huge fan of the feature, but like, I feel like next gen is where it's really going to take effect. Cause you go into, whatever regardless if they decide to do these half gen updates. And then, I think Microsoft a couple of times has come out that they don't believe in generations anymore. I don't know how reliable that source is at this point, because that was made a long time ago. But I mean, you go into, their competition, PS5 and whatever. I would say Xbox 2. It could be Xbox 720. I have no clue what Xbox does with their names these days.
Honey Badger.
So, I mean, you go from something like that.
Capricorn.
It's going to be it's going to be hard for their competition to outmarket 3 generation of games, out the gate.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like what Anchorman said. It's a good PR piece. It's nice to have in your back pocket, but realistically, I don't really think it does anything. I don't think it really like suddenly someone's going to be like, "Well, I need to pick up an Xbox One because it has OG back compat," and you can kind of tell that just from where they positioned it at the conference at E3. It was the softening blow before they announced $500 for Xbox One X.
I feel like I would agree with you on that, but backwards compatibility, it was a big thing, the 360, but I feel like people would have a completely different tone if it was there on Xbox One launch. I feel like it would be a completely different ball game if, the games you currently have, because let's be real here, when a new generation starts, next gen games, there's not a lot of them. They're few between, and for the most part, for the longest time, for probably the first year, you're still getting, the previous gen ports just ported up.
Yeah, I think there's more value in the 360 back compat than OG one. I mean, how they've even gone on record.
I don't care about the OG Xbox.
Right, but I think there's more value just because it was the last gen. Like, they've already said there's not going to be as many OG Xbox games as there were 360 games, just because, right? And
right.
It's just I think Phil likes the idea of preserving games as art, as like having all the Xbox games, the whole family of Xbox games under one roof. I mean, I think it's a nice kind of quality of life thing it's like an olive branch to the users. Be like, hey, here's 360 back compat. We know some of you have original. We're trying our best. Here's this, and I think back compat really kind of is bigger importance next gen or whatever they're going to do next gen, because Sony, you don't know what they're doing with the PS5. I mean, we know it's coming, but is it going to be full back compat with PS4? Because if they don't,
I don't think,
like that's the opening for Microsoft. I just assume both companies are going to have full back compat on both, like with the era.
I'd like to think that, but part of me thinks that Sony is just for some reason, I really think Sony's not going to care about backwards compatibility. Like, I got this
I
weird
agree.
feeling that they're going to be like, look, like we literally fed our fans, you know, regardless what reasons, what intent they had, and they were accepting that. So, like, you know, for the most part, you know, their sales don't go down, the console sales don't go down. Why would they do it when the consumer base clearly has not showed that they want that?
Listen, there's one reason why I decided to go and buy all my games on Xbox, regardless of what people said about, even when I got the PS4, regardless of games maybe not running or looking better on the Xbox One compared to PS4, or even with the Pro, which I have. It's because of the whole backwards compatible thing. Being able to bring your games with you and have those licenses attached to your account, generation is a big deal to me. You know, especially as somebody who grew up on a lot of RPGs, the Xbox, the OG Xbox, and this is a factual statement, and I know a lot of Xbox fans is not going to like this, but the OG Xbox has more classics than the Xbox One. Literally, there's more classic games on the OG Xbox than the Xbox One. There's a lot of games people really want to see back. Crimson Skies is a great game to have, and it's really fun. I think what people don't realize is when you play those old games, they play like old ass games. So you don't get the extra you would normally get on something else. Like, imagine looking at controllers today, 15, 20 years ago. How many inputs when you look at a controller? This button does this. If you hold this button, it does that. Yada, 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 yada. You know, back then it was just A, B, left bumper, right bumper. It was very simple. It wasn't as deep. So a lot of people might not realize that, but you get an opportunity to go back and play some of these classics. I've seen so many people excited to play Ninja Gaiden again, or people who've never got a chance to play Ninja Gaiden be intrigued and thinking, hey, I would buy an Xbox because I would not only get the Xbox One games, still have access to some of the games I had on 360, but now get a chance to play some of these OG Xbox games. And to me, it's a huge proposition because you have a library of games that you get to bring with you. Sort of keeps this going. I don't know how long they're able to do this long term, but you have a library. Imagine having a library with you in like maybe another generation of over 1,000 games attached to your name, 1,000 licenses attached to your game, to your name, from all the games you purchased from the OG Xbox, the 360, the Xbox One, Honey Badger, and then whatever else they have coming out after that. So I just really think it's serious because I'm not saying it's going to be impactful where it's going to make somebody go out and buy it. I just think that overall package of what it offers, the value is really big and it's really huge. And I think if a lot of people pick up KOTOR and a lot of people pick up Ninja Gaiden, it could maybe lead to new games. You just never know. And I think that might be something Microsoft is trying to do as well.
Here's the real question, though. The one that I don't know, I have not seen anybody actually posit a theory on this. How much do you think these are going to cost? These OG Xbox games, because they have not been on the market.
They better be under $20.
I don't feel like any OG Xbox game should be over $10.
Yeah, I feel the same way. But I wouldn't be surprised if they sold some of the bigger titles for $15 or more.
I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to sell KOTOR for $30. To be completely honest with you, like I would not be surprised.
Buy $30. I would rather download an emulator and play it on PC.
Yeah, what is KOTOR
That's
on
insane.
PC right now? Because you can buy KOTOR on Steam, can't you?
It's like $10 or $15.
Yeah.
Like
I thought I saw an image where.
But sometimes that doesn't matter what it is on PC.
Well, true, but I thought I saw an image where on Xbox.com where like Dead to Rights was going to be $10. I'm assuming that's the price. But like Cal, you know, imagine how much more. Like I'm a fan of the idea of having all the Xbox games in one place. I just have no practical value for it or practical use, right? But imagine if they went and actually tinkered with some of it and actually let you play online in Crimson Skies, because there's no OG Xbox Live anymore, right? So already one portion of that game is destroyed, and then like imagine if they did some Xbox Live where you could play online, but then what if they did what everybody wants them to do? And I know you're going to say, oh, that's because you're an achievement guy, but then they actually gave all the original Xbox game achievements. I know they're not going to because Mike Gabar already said no, but I think that would actually add a lot of value and get a lot more people to go back and maybe play some of those older games instead of just like the straight emulation that it's going to be, you know?
Right. No, I 100% agree with you. This is the only instance I'm going to say this game. Fusion Frenzy is one of the games that needs to have Fusion Frenzy is one of those games that needs to have live. You know, it's just one of those games where it's local co-op, but it needs live. If you give me live, I will play Fusion Frenzy all day because Microsoft sorely needs a party game. They need something like a Mario Party, a Smash Brothers, where you can just have endless fun and not worry about, you got to be the best or you have to cheat. It's just a competition thing. And it doesn't matter how many times you play it. You're just always having fun with a group of friends. And that's one of the things I think they truly miss with the Xbox One. So, I think back compat isn't as impactful as Microsoft may want it to be, but I think that it adds a lot of value and it's an enticement, especially for people who love the Xbox, people who have the original Xbox and has been with Xbox since day one. There's a lot of good classics on OG Xbox. They put some classics on from 360, and hopefully, when the next generation comes, there's a few classics, I think, on the Xbox One, like games like Cuphead, I think will be a classic. Ori's a classic. Forza Horizon 3 is a classic. 2, I think, may be a classic as well. Like Halo 5, so I wouldn't put in that category. A lot of people don't like Gears. Sunset Overdrive, I think a lot of people love Sunset, clamor for a new one, so I would put it in that category too because it's unique, and a lot of people missed out on it, but we'll see what happens, and hopefully the other games that may not be classics will, with them, they might get a cult following like a Quantum Break or Recore, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll see what happens in the future, man, with what Microsoft has coming out. I know they have a lot of games that they're working on. I know a lot of people don't believe that, but they are working on some titles, and hopefully we get a chance to see them soon. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next subject before we get to the big topic. New Soul Reaver. I don't know if you guys play Soul Reaver or know of the Legacy of Kain series, but this was a great franchise. I remember working in GameStop back in the day and first discovering Soul Reaver. Didn't even know about Legacy of Kain series, just Soul Reaver for the first time, and was completely enamored with this story about Raziel and how he was betrayed. If you don't know, let me do a quick summary of what Soul Reaver is. So Kain is basically this guy who died. Let's put it like that. He was sent back to Earth to get revenge or kill a particular king that was a bad king, but he was sent back as a vampire. And in the end, he was supposed to die, but he didn't, and instead became the new ruler and started turning people into vampires. Long story short, he has a general. One of his generals, his name is Raziel. And Raziel develops wings before he does. Kain, who is like basically the Dracula of the universe. He's like the original vampire. One of his generals or one of his lieutenants develops wings before him. And in a jealousy, in a rage, he rips the wings off his back and throws him into a whirlpool of water. And to vampires in this world, water is like acid. So he literally dies and burns up. He loses his jaw, his wings get burnt to a crisp and all this stuff like that. So you meet this guy who's like the timekeeper or whatever. Timekeeper brings Raziel back to life. And his sole purpose is to go get Kain, to bring him, kill him, and bring him back to the underworld, which is where he's supposed to be, because he didn't promise in his own series. This is the great thing about this. This is 2 series happening at the same time with an intertwining story. You have the Legacy of Kain series where you play Kain as a vampire and you're doing all of this stuff as Kain. And in another instance, you're Raziel playing like this vampire that's kind of like brought back from the dead. And you can jump between in the spirit realm. And you can fight all of these spirits and stuff, and you absorb their souls. You suck their souls into yourself. And you wind up getting the Soul Reaver blade, which is basically the actual blade of Kain that was broken. It's such a sick franchise. I love it so much. I truly hope that they really do bring this game back because I'm just so excited for this game. What is your guys' thoughts on this?
Boring. Give me Darksiders 3.
Jesus Christ. Somebody get him out of here. Like, I just can't deal with this guy anymore.
They are giving you Darksiders 3, though.
I know, exactly. Give it to me now.
I mean, I don't know. From what I've seen of it, Darksiders 3 doesn't look very interesting.
Hey,
it was brought back from the dead. It was THQ dead. It's back.
So you act like that matters. A bad game would still be a bad game regardless where it was brought back from.
Give me Legacy of Kain. I played those games. They're fantastic.
Now, what kind? I've never played it. What kind of gameplay is it? Like, is it a first person, third person? Well, it doesn't sound like a first person, but
it was a third person adventure game.
Yeah.
So pretty much like God of War, somewhere around that line,
like
hack
something
and
like that. Yeah, hack and slash game. You ran around, and what was really cool was you would fight your brothers, because over time, what happened was the other generals, the other vampires, they became twisted. So you would fight them in the spirit world, and each one of them had a different ability, which gave you a new ability. It was almost like a combination of Mega Man and God of War. It was like, if you beat that boss, now you got that boss's ability, and you were able to walk on walls or scale walls or float or fly or swim. You know, it was really, really dope, man. I really loved that game. It was pretty dope.
But do you think their teasing on Twitter is implying that they're working on a new game?
Well, it definitely implies something. Maybe a remaster, maybe a revival of the series. I mean, why bring up something like that and not show it? You know what I'm saying?
I thought Crystal Dynamics was working on. They had their partnership with Disney, and they were working on those Avengers games that they announced. And Tomb Raider was moved to Eidos Montreal, if I'm not mistaken, like the new Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I mean, I guess it's possible maybe a smaller team is working on a revival.
Have a smaller team. Could have a smaller team, maybe remastering the Soul Reaver series before announcing a new one. Yeah. After they drop the Avengers series, do a remaster.
The Avengers thing, if I remember correctly, is Crystal Dynamics is assisting with some Square Enix studios, but they're not like the head guys, rather, for the Avengers one. They're more just kind of like the side studio.
See, I thought they were the head. I thought they were the head studio for that.
At least keep in mind, whenever I saw the announcement, I was at work. So, but they announced Square first, then Crystal Dynamics assisting. But again, I could be wrong.
Yeah, I thought Crystal Dynamics was doing it, and then because that was like the big deal, and then they kind of took Tomb Raider and gave it to a different studio, because Crystal Dynamics always did Tomb Raider. And then because this was like the new mandate from Square Enix that you got to do these Avengers games, so they shifted Tomb Raider to Montreal to finish it. But I would love to see Legacy of Kain come back.
Me too. I'm with you on that, Rand, because I listen, with all this talk about games as a service, I'm disappointed in EA and what they did with Visceral and the Star Wars games, unfortunately, being canceled or whatever. I don't think the single player experience is dead by any means. I don't think that the single player experience is generating the revenue that these developers need. I don't think gamers understand how much it costs to make games. I think this is one of the biggest problems we have. There's a disconnect between gamers and a disconnect with developers. And they need to be forthcoming. I think gamers would be more understanding if they understood how much it costs to make games. When Visceral comes out, the Visceral dev comes out and tells you that it costs $60 million to make Dead Space 2, and they didn't make that money back. You got to make that 60 back, and you got to profit. Like, making a 60 back is just breaking even. You got to profit off of that. You know what I'm saying? So if your game isn't doing massive numbers, if it isn't doing good numbers, then that's not good. And I think the biggest difference is gamers overall, it doesn't matter whether it's on PlayStation, whether it's on Xbox, Switch, people just are not buying games the way they used to. You can just see it. It's really the games as a service and those big MMOs and those big games that have huge worlds where a lot of people are playing and it's competitive and it's like multiplayer. Those are the games that are really selling. Phil Spencer made a great point. I know a lot of people still didn't agree with him. People to this day still don't agree with him. People to this day still believe that the single player game is viable. And the reality of it is that it takes a lot. This is why they put microtransactions in games. I'm not for loot boxes, obviously, but a lot of microtransactions in games and skins and DLC and all this extra stuff because it costs so much to make these games. People don't think about the voice acting, the choreographing all the cutscenes, whatever the engines that they're using. Think about developers not making new engines, instead just upgrading the ones they've already had from last generation because it costs tons of money to do that. It just flies over people's head all the time.
I would be inclined to believe you. The problem I have is you got publishers like Activision, who even when their budgets were not as well, didn't have to be as robust as they were back in the last gen and even beforehand, they still milked the crap out of people. They milked every last dime out of every gamer, and now you're trying to say, well, we need we need the microtransactions now. Now we need this money so we still keep it alive. And it's like it's really hard to believe people when you took advantage of them for a while and then you kept changing the game up, You're like, oh, but we need it now. We need your help.
Think about this one, right? $60. How long has it been since games went up in price? Almost 12 years. Everything else in the industry has gone up. Controller prices have gone up, console prices have gone up, but games have stayed the same. Games have maintained that $60 price point for the longest time. Again, I'm not defending microtransactions. I'm just saying I get it. I understand. If you don't want to invest in microtransactions or you don't want to buy loot boxes and you're not into that, don't purchase them. But not think about how much it costs to make these games that we love so much and be like, wow, did you see the graphics? We have graphic debates. Digital Foundry is literally doing graphic debates. Their whole livelihood is based on these debates about what looks good because of the graphics and how much it costs to make these games to look prettier and better and run better and be bigger and be more realistic. It's an insane proposition to think that a publisher puts out a game and that game flops. Imagine Quantum Break and how much Quantum Break cost. You're talking about real acting, real live cutscenes. The graphics on it was no slouch. It was done really well. And that game, I can tell you right off the bat, probably did not even come anywhere close to making back its budget whatsoever. And that's a major hit for Microsoft. I'm not saying Activision is right, but I wouldn't say how many games Activision put out and those games flop compared to how many games put out and those games make a lot of money. Publisher, you're thinking about one game. As a publisher, you got to think about everything that they publish as a whole and what's effective, what's not effective, and how are they surviving as a publisher. So I think a lot of that goes over people's heads when it comes to these microtransactions and things like that.
And that's true, but we're talking about now. But what I'm saying is that if you look at the gamer conditioning, is that for so long, publishers and certain developers have taken advantage of gamers with the whole price thing when they didn't need to, but now when they need that little extra income, it's falling on deaf ears. It's like, no, you told me this for years. Think of it as an example. Let's say we're at a baseball stadium and I'm selling you hot dogs. I'm selling you an overpriced hot dog initially. Let's say I'm selling you a hot dog for $2 or something like that, starting in 2000. And but if you want, like you get all the toppings on it, except for ketchup and mustard, which is $1 a packet. $1, which is gouging you, and you're like, okay, it's location, okay, fine. But I'm not like the $1 is still a bit much. But now over here, we're sitting here 17 years later, and if you go to a baseball field for $2 for a hot dog, oh my gosh, that's a bargain. That's going for it. But you've lost the toppings and stuff on the side, and you have to pay a little extra for those. And so now it's harder for you to convince the same people when you're still charging them for the same stuff, all the toppings and the side stuff. Now it's a little bit harder to tell them, oh, we need this money now to stay alive. We need this one. When you told me for so long, okay, you gouged me year after year after year for these hot dogs or these video games, to then to be like, oh, we actually need your help this time. And part of it might just be the long-term approach. But like, you see some games like, like when you see, I'm trying to think of a good example. Let's say Rainbow Six. Was it Rainbow Six Siege? When you see them and kind of incorporate the semi-loot box pack model. And you're like, okay, yeah, I get it. You didn't screw me before. So, okay, I'll throw a little extra money towards that. I'll help you out. But because they haven't been screwing me over the time like Call of Duty has.
Said that I just think they need to be more transparent because gamers don't know these issues because it's none of their business as a business. But gamers are so intuitive and so curious about situations. Like, honestly, every gamer is almost a goddamn detective. You know what I'm saying? Like, as gamers, we have to investigate everything and figure out why this is the way it is. This doesn't make sense. We need to know why. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, as a publisher, if publishers want to be more transparent, I think it would go a long way to making gamers help gamers understand why they do some of the things they do.
I mean,
go ahead.
When it comes to, their past attempts before, these recent microtransactions, which, I consider everything in that genre, like DLC, loot boxes, season passes. Well, season passes, all the DLC, but remember the online passes that was like 6 years ago,
right?
Like all that's microtransactions. It's just different forms of it. And look at something like season passes. Okay, you got developers. Well, I wouldn't even say really developers. Most of these issues, people like to blame developers, but it's usually on the publishers. But look at you. They throw out season passes and they expect people to buy them, but a lot of the time you don't even know what you're getting. They won't even give you any kind of roadmap, no kind of anything, no knowledge whatsoever. They expect these consumers to buy blindly, and as much as Anchorman's not going to like this, like take Bethesda for instance. When they increased their season pass to what was it, 50, Anchorman? Like they said,
it was 50.
They said we're gonna give you more content, which is cool. Everyone likes more content. He's like, we get, and they did give people a deadline where if you didn't buy before that deadline, you were just cut off. And they're like, oh, and if you ask what we want to put on there, we ain't telling you. We don't even really know ourselves. But if you go out there, you buy this now, which I have to give them that. They could have just, one day just be like, yo, it's 50 now. Just get over it.
Yeah, they could have just raised and screw you.
But they know, Bethesda knows that that's bad publicity. That's bad PR. So that's why they told you. But at the end of the day, it's like, why are you going to raise a value of something when we don't even know what you're selling us?
Yeah,
right. And so when it comes to scenarios like that, you can't. It's hard to blame, like, I wasn't saying you were blaming the consumer, Cal. I was just saying it's hard to, blame the consumer when they've messed up a lot when it comes to, how they present their games. Like, take Evolve, for instance. It's like maybe more people would have picked up Evolve if they didn't have, 30, 40 some items that was microtransactions after the game was bought.
It goes back to what I said before. Yeah, but it just goes back to what I said before about being transparent.
Oh, I agree.
Just be honest. You know what I'm saying?
It comes to stuff like, certain games. It's like, and what I like is when people say a game is flopped, they'll take completely different scenarios. Like, let's take, for instance, Gears of War. Okay, Gears of War, high budgeted game, and then let's take something like Halo Wars 2, both developed by Microsoft. Okay, what do you think needs to sell more to make profit?
Mm-hmm.
What game would you say would need to sell more to make profit?
You mean out of what, the big titles that they just released?
Two, Halo Wars 2 or Gears of War 4. Which one do you think needs more units to make profit?
I would definitely say Halo.
No, Gears of War 4.
Without question.
Halo Wars 2.
Really?
I'm talking about
Halo Wars. I just said Halo. My bad.
Halo Wars 2.
Halo.
Gears.
Let's say that
Gears sells 1.5 million in 3 months, and Halo sells only 600,000 in 3 months. They're saying both are flops, which there's a lot of people that are saying Gears are flop, which you can't really go into that. It's a completely different argument. But I'm like, they're completely two different games. It's like, Halo Wars 2 probably had literally a fifth of the budget that Gears of War 4 had, so that's not necessarily make it a flop. But they don't really tell us stuff like that. They don't tell us how much these games cost. They don't tell us what to really expect when it comes to sales.
Right. Well, listen, the good thing about Xbox and this with EA is that adding these services like Game Pass and EA Access has been a cushion these days. So when they do release games that don't do well, they have a revenue stream to fall back on. And again, I always go back to when we had the father of Xbox on the show, Seamus Blackley, and we got a chance to talk to him about that. And that's one of the things that he brought up when we spoke with him. And he talked about how a lot of people don't recognize that Phil investing in a new console opens up a new revenue stream to invest in more games, and having Game Pass allows them to take risk, because if the games aren't successful, there's Game Pass to fall back on, and these things have been very successful for Microsoft as of now.
Do you think we'll ever see Microsoft actually release a game to Game Pass first?
I think they will, but it won't be a $60 game.
Yeah, it will be something like if I were to put like online, I would say like Recore and lower, like something on that caliber.
No, I'd say like the next Ori, like the next $20 game.
I don't see Ori.
Nah, Ori's
agrees.
Yeah, Ori's getting bigger, but
I'm talking something of that kind of caliber, where it's more like it's a $20 game, and they don't have a lot riding on it. It's probably something more for like a
future
first party studio.
No, maybe like the next Hitman, you know what I'm saying, or something like that. Like
all the episodic games. Yeah.
Episodic games,
Yeah, and it's like what you said earlier, Cal. I like how you brought up the Xbox One X. It's not even really about it's about what you can pitch. You can't go with, it's like you said, where they have the new product. It's easier to use that as leverage to get money than not have that and be like, we just need money for no reason. It's like, you let us invest into the X. We need more to bring out the sales of the X.
Right. Well, we'll see what happens, man. Next year, to me, again, is a big year for Xbox. I really hope that they really bring the noise. We're going to get into this next and final topic because this is a big deal. I want to touch on a few things very quickly, though. Again, like Rand said, I really hope we see a new Soul Reaver in the future, whether it comes out the generation after next or we get some sort of remake or remaster. I'm down for that. I think a lot of people should play it. It's worth the purchase. Great franchise. I want to touch on the idea Xbox making $500 million. That's a big deal. You can attribute half of that to Randall Thor because because of his purchases and games that he gets from Microsoft. Idea Xbox has been very successful. Very proud of Chris Charler and that team, man, and always grateful to them for introducing us to so many excellent indie developers with the time that we spent with them at E3 in 2015. So
there's a lot of gems in Idea at Xbox. A lot of gems.
A lot of gems.
And it helps really fill out the release schedule. 5 games every week, sometimes 12. But yeah, I'm really happy to see the success for the program. Plus some of the indie games. There are some really, really good games in the program, and it's nice seeing that gamers are rewarding them with purchases.
Right. Absolutely. All right. So listen, man, I want to thank everybody for stopping out. 57 people watching. Make sure you give us a thumbs up. We greatly appreciate the support. Make sure you share it out to all your friends because this is the premier podcast. So as we get to the final topic, Shannon Loftus came out and did a big interview. And I don't know if it made a lot of noise to a lot of people, but a lot of fans have been kind of upset about this, including our good friend Tim Dog, who has been very vocal recently about his displeasure, maybe not with her in particular, but the fact that Microsoft isn't recognizing some of their shortcomings. And again, understand that this is a PR situation. You know, if you're in charge of a company and you work for that company, the last thing you're going to do is dog your own company. If you're the head of that company, you can recognize some of your faults. But for the most part, if you're not, if you're just someone who works within the company, you're never going to recognize your faults. The only thing you could do is put on a smiley face and continue to be positive. I mean, we see that today in politics. So even when things are going bad, you always have to make it seem like everything is going good. But there's definitely a disconnect among some of the fans, some of the direction that some people may feel Microsoft is going. People are kind of worried about what may happen at E3 2018. People need to know what's happening. I've been saying this for years. One of the things that I gripe about when I first discovered Microsoft's situation when they came to first party and how they were going about games. The difference between last generation and this generation was last generation, they had a good library, a good, I guess you could say, assortment of first party studios, a good investment in Japanese games, a good investment in diversity. And because they were the #1 platform and the easiest platform to develop for, it put them in a position where they were able to get a lot of big games, and most games ran well on them. And that allowed them to take a good portion of the market away from Sony. This time around, it wasn't the case. Some people blame GAF for their shortcomings. Microsoft put their own foot in their mouths with their presentation. There's a lot of things that happen that really put Xbox behind, but they've been able to right the ship over the last couple of years with the rise of Phil Spencer and having him in charge and the way they reshaped their team. 2017 was eye-opening for so many fans because a lot of games that were supposed to release this year got canceled. Scalebound was supposed to release, gone. Release, gone. Games got pushed to next year. State of Decay, Crackdown. Smaller studios were released, that were contractual studios like a Twisted Pixel, no longer a part of Microsoft's first party. A studio like Press Play was let go along with Lionhead Studios. So it really put Microsoft in a position where it's been out of 2017. It didn't happen. They put all their eggs behind Halo Wars 2 and Voodoo Vince, two games that, for me personally, was not something that was on my radar. No disrespect to Halo Wars 2, because I know Lord Attic loves Halo Wars 2.
I'll let you slide.
But Voodoo Vince wasn't on my plate. Obviously, E3 really impressed me with the diversity of what they're trying to present, and I like what they have coming out next year, as well as what they have coming out the rest of the year. Right. Was the fact I felt they relied too much on third party. And a lot of people said it doesn't matter. They own the IP to Quantum Break, and they own the IP to Recore, and that's great. But my thing was always, what if doesn't want to make another Quantum Break? And what if the guys over at Armature don't want to make another Recore? Now you're stuck trying to find studios or build a studio to do this. And honestly, why would you want somebody else to build the studio if you can't get people from Remedy? The great thing about Black Tusk was they were able to snatch people from Epic. That's why Gears still has its Gears feeling. But if you bring in a completely new studio, and the same thing with 343, if you bring in a completely new studio with people who are unfamiliar with this game, that they have to learn this game, it may not have the same feel as the original. And that's why first party is so important, because you can't control third party. So the biggest problem that we have is that Microsoft is not recognizing their shortcomings with first party and their investment into first party. Now, we don't know who they're working with on these new titles. I've heard they have an exclusive with Capcom. I've heard they're working on some big title that's supposed to be like
Horizon.
What is it? Yes, Horizon Zero Dawn. And I heard that there's a game that they're working with called, I believe it's called oh my God, something Fall. I forget the name of the game. Something Fall. It's from a writer, and he's an author of a book series within the same name, and I believe they're working with him on
Isn't it Darkfall?
game. I think it's Darkfall. There you go, Darkfall. And that is another franchise that they're working on as well. So I'm just trying to figure out, what does Microsoft have to do to recognize what us Xbox fans are talking about? Rand, let's start with you, because I know that you're a prominent proponent of this.
What do they have to do? Oh boy. They're going to actually have to talk about the future and not just 6 months in advance. Because this E3, as much as I'd like the presentation, we literally don't know anything about the future of Xbox. It's all the same exact stuff that they've been talking about for years. So this is it. 2018 E3. Sea of Thieves will be out. State of Decay 2 will be out. Crackdown 3 will be out. You better come and you better show the commitment that you say you have, or you have, are doing, that you've signed these games, because Xbox literally has nothing left after those 3 announced games, right?
Yeah, those are the E3 games for the past couple of years.
Yeah. So, but here's the thing.
I think Ashen's going to be big.
Ashen's, but that's not exclusive anymore. It's a launch exclusive for Xbox. The thing is, it can't be Halo and it can't be Gears. It can't even really be Forza, because those are,
right,
quote unquote, to be expected. Everybody expects a new Halo. Everybody expects a new Gears. Everybody expects a new Forza. What people want is, and they're not even like saying we want 5 new IPs. They just want one new IP, one new AAA IP on something on the scale of Horizon. And for a lot of people, they would feel satiated in knowing that, okay, Xbox is, Phil's saying this and he's actually delivering on it, right? The question is, are they going to do it? Phil's talked about how games as a service is going to rule the industry going forward.
Right.
And we don't know how he's managing the studios. Is he trying to get in on that? Or is it going to be a more Sony approach, where Sony's like, we'll let the third parties do the games as a service, and we're going to let our teams focus on single player experiences that a lot of people don't necessarily get? I'm really interested in seeing what this E3 shows up, because they have to deliver the goods. 2 E3s in a row, no new IP. Unacceptable, in my opinion. And it's just kind of a sad state that, in my opinion, I thought 2017 was the worst year for Xbox ever, right?
Right.
Ever. It's term exclusives.
I agree.
And I see people saying that 2018 is going to be better, but I find that kind of funny, considering all those games that are 2018 were supposed to be this year. So it's like you kind of just shuffled the deck board from one year to the next,
But I look at it the same way that people looked at PlayStation. Was it no different? PS4 had an amazing year at the beginning of the year, yet a lot of those games was pushed into 2017 that was supposed to drop in 2016.
It happens. But I mean, the thing with PlayStation is it gets third-party exclusives. Granted, they're Japanese exclusives, but they're still exclusives, and they just so happen to be actually good this time around, right? So there's hey, we have Neo, we have Nier Automata, we have Persona 5, we have this, we have that, which Xbox gamers don't have. And then you have something like Horizon, a new IP, from the makers of their first-person shooter studio. No, and an Xbox fan, Microsoft isn't going to let 343 make anything but Halo. So you look at you look at that, and you're like, wow, man, Sony let Guerrilla Games spend 5 years making a open world RPG with robot dinosaurs, and deep down, Microsoft would never let 343 do that. Microsoft will never let the Coalition do anything but Gears of War. Microsoft's never going to let Turn 10 do anything but Forza. And that's kind of the differences between there. I think Microsoft is more focused on the bottom line, and they're not willing to take risks. They kind of just want a guaranteed return, And hopefully next year they bring it. And I'm not telling anybody to wait till next year. I'm just saying to Microsoft, you better bring it next year, because all your games you've been showing for these past 4 years. I mean, think about it. Crackdown 3 was originally shown off in 2014. It's going to be 2018 when it finally releases. That's 4 years. you know, Sea of Thieves was originally debuted. What was that, Cal? 2015, right?
2015. Yep.
That's
right.
3 years. You know, this whole talk that Phil doesn't like to show stuff early. I don't know where that's coming from, because some of the games here they're talking about, these are old games. Like, you know, Ori 2, from what I've been told, that's 2019 at the earliest. If it doesn't even get a delay, that game could be 2020, right?
Right.
So I don't know,
Right.
man. I want to. I believe Phil, right? Because I've talked to him enough to know what type of person he is. He doesn't lie. So when he says he's signed stuff, but it's just not ready to show, I believe him 100%.
Right.
But you've coasted these last couple years. You're coasting on the quote unquote launch exclusives of having, what was it, 21 exclusives, right? But most of them are indie exclusives. You've coasted on that. You know, now it's time to kind of show and say, yeah, we invested in first party, and 2018 at E3, like, you have to deliver the goods. Otherwise, like Tim, because Tim was going off about it today, people are going to be like, cupboard's bare. The Emperor has no clothes, you know?
Right. I think that Microsoft, and this is the reason why I liked their E3. We were at E3. We watched every conference. And in the end, we all agreed that Microsoft had the best conference. I know a lot of PlayStation fans may not agree with that, but even our own resident PlayStation fanboy agreed that Xbox had the better conference. Though a lot of games did get pushed to 2018, and though a good portion of the games they showed are timed exclusives, I think a lot of people don't recognize, even on the other side, when you look at some of the timed exclusives, and we know that those games are timed. Like, for example, there's a great RPG that we're all looking forward to, which is Lost. What is it called? Lost Soul Aside, I believe it is. It was done by one guy. It looks amazing. It looks like he works for Square, and it's like a Final Fantasy type game or whatever. And it's coming out for PlayStation 4, but it's timed, and it will come to Xbox, and that's the great thing about that. But nobody looks at that like, oh, it's timed, especially the PS4 fan base. They just look at it like, oh, it's a PS4 game. It's coming to PS4 first. Whenever it hits Xbox, it just hits Xbox. And in that regard, I look at a lot of things they did last year with showing 42 exclusives, with a good portion of them being timed or whatever. We don't know if they're going to hit PC. We don't know if it's first on console, then PC, or it's first on console, then PlayStation. We don't know how long it's going to be timed. All I know is, for the most part, I'll be able to play a good portion of those games first on Xbox, along with the exclusives that have been pushed into next year, which should be ready early next year, which is what has me excited for fall holiday of 2018, because E3, we need to see something. What I'm hoping that I don't see is a new Halo coming out in 2018, anything related to Gears coming out in 2018. Obviously, we'll get a Forza, possibly. We don't know. We do know that the guys over at Playground are working on some type of RPG, at least based on some of the rumors that we've heard. But we don't know if that's timed exclusive, if it's multi-plat, who knows? But I think Microsoft really, at least for 2018, with the Xbox One X included in that, has a way bigger sell and a way bigger upside than they did for 2017. And I think E3, hopefully they can deliver. They may have something special going forward, but that's just my thoughts and my opinions on it.
Oh, you know, Anchorman could be like, "What we're gonna do is announce Fallout 5, and I'm good."
I mean, I've already settled into the fact like Fallout 4 is not coming out anytime remotely soon.
What needs to happen is tomorrow they announce Fallout 4. Fallout 5 is coming out at the end of 2017, like December the 1st, and make him wait a whole month to play it.
It won't matter, because it would have to come out. Well, actually, the game that for our bet already came out, and so I can't play that one for a month, which I will gladly not play. I
feel like you really got gymped on this bet here, Cal. Like, did you not sit here and think before you made the bet? You would have to play Alien Isolation if you lost, man.
Here's the thing. I know
Alien Isolation anyway.
No. I'm not going to play that game. I know Anchorman is a huge Bethesda Fallout fan. So him not playing the next Fallout release was a big deal to me. The furthest thing from my mind was him actually getting me to play something that I do not play, which is a horror game. I'm thinking he's going to make me play some crap, like some crappy indie game, or make me buy some game that's just trash that I'm not going to play. the furthest thing from my mind. But I was so dead set that this console was going to be 500. I felt there was no way I was going to be wrong. Even me and Rand went at it a little bit. I was like, Rand is going to be 500, and Rand is like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? We put back and forth about it a little bit. But in the end, I knew it was going to be 500 just for the simple fact that, man, they just kept talking about it. Phil just kept talking about it being a premium device. And I kept thinking about the Elite controller.
I gave Anchorman
the Elite controller was like,
I told him 3 days before E3 that it was $500.
It wasn't 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
It was 2 days.
It was 2 days. What I told you about it when I heard what it was, 100%. And I was like, you lost
and
my
then
bet.
right after that, after we talked to each other again for the second time, then Crackdown got delayed. So
Look at him. He's trying to blame you in that download
it's
piece
your
of
fault.
it was just so funny when it got announced because I was the only person that cheered in the stands. It was like five. I was like, yeah. Everybody else was looking at me like, really, dude? $500? Like, yo, you have no idea. I was on the verge of playing Alien Isolation. Like, I was very excited.
Things were rough.
It was tough.
You weren't breathing, was you?
I was not. I was like, I'd rather pay the $500 than play Alien Isolation for it to be 500. Those are good times. But yeah, man. What do you think Microsoft needs to do? I mean, do they continue along the path?
I think what Microsoft needs to do is it's like Grant said, they just need to be more open. Like, it's like, look, I get that, too many games have burnt them. When you go from Fable Legends to Scalebound to Project Spark, which a lot of people forget about that game, there's a lot of games that they funded that just completely burnt them, especially probably Scalebound and Quantum Break's probably the two biggest L's they've received.
Right. I agree.
And
I think that hurt them.
Yeah, Scalebound getting canceled and Quantum Break flopping like it did. I think those are the two prime examples of why we ain't seeing a whole lot right now.
Mm-hmm.
So they just need to be more upfront. It's like, look, if you don't want to show everything, show what I don't even care at this point. Like, just all people need is maybe 1 or 2 games. Pick something that for a fact is going to come out. Like, I would say they're going to make Fable 4 because, there's a lot of rumors they're going to be around Fable 4. Like, show a trailer for that. Show something. And I feel like it's got to be a single-player game, too, because that's what the criticism is. It's people aren't, they don't have faith in the first-party genre. That's all. Everything else is fine. It's just the first-party genre.
What does Anchorman want for Microsoft?
Me? Oh,
yeah.
I don't think anyone would care.
Anchorman doesn't even know what he wants. Let's just
Anchorman doesn't know.
Well, I know exactly what I want. That's the thing.
Fusion Frenzy 2
Minecraft.
and Fallout 5.
He was Minecraft 2.
No, Minecraft 2 already came out, bro. Like, it already did. This is the Better Together update. That's what this is. No, honestly though, for me, what would make it just about right is if they can come out with what the coalition was working on first, Shanghai Heist. I feel like that has the best potential for a game that Microsoft has in their pen. They still have access to the rights of that franchise, and it's largely undefined. It could be a fun game. Because keep in mind also, I was paying attention to Black Tusk when they were being formed. They were picking up different people from all different types of franchises, and it was like I kept speculating what kind of game this would be. Like, what kind of game could they be working on? They were picking up people from Need for Speed. They were picking up a couple people from Splinter Cell. And it was like, all right, what kind of game is this? Is it like a stealth third-person game? Is this a racing game? Is it maybe a mixture of both? I don't know what it is. But I would love to see that kind of game, like a game that is so focused more on like a heist kind of setup. I feel like Xbox guys could get in on that. So it's something kind of like a Payday, but like better graphics and maybe more of a story than that. But I feel like there's a lot more potential there, and they could do so much better. I want to see what they can do with that particular franchise. I feel like that'd be something where it would appeal to the fan base, and it would be different enough for what it's doing. It could be enjoyable. So that's what I want.
I mean, if it's easy, a game like that, I think would do extremely well with the Microsoft crowd for 2 reasons. One is stealth action. Anything to do with heist is stealth action. You can easily form a great story around that. Wanting a new Splinter Cell. And for the guys out there that love Metal Gear, it falls in line with that. It's one of the things that I've wanted them to redo with Perfect Dark. Dark into a third-person espionage type game where you're dealing with, a undercover plot about aliens taking over the world, because there's aliens in Perfect Dark and there's this espionage, and she's like the secret agent type person. So I thought that'd be really cool. But if they did decide to bring back Shanghai, I wouldn't be mad at that. I think what Microsoft truly needs is, and said, they need a game, because listen, when you look at what Xbox delivers, they do two things extremely well: multiplayer games and racing. Games are really what define this platform when it comes to Gears, Halo, and Forza, and we know that. And in those genres, they really have it locked up, at least when it comes exclusively to which platform has the best shooter, the best racer of the generation. What they need is a big third action RPG or big third person action adventure game, and they lost that with Fable. Fable was always their big RPG. Never lived up to the hype that Peter Molyneux presented. It was still something that fans look forward to. I'm not saying they need to bring back Fable, but they need something along those lines. And whatever game that they're making that's supposed to be like Horizon Zero Dawn, I hope that it's not a clone, but I do hope it's along the lines of it's a big open world game. I would love to have the guys at CD Projekt Red work on Fable. If you can hire any third party developer to do it, these are the guys to do it. And I still, to this day, feel like Fable needs to be rebooted. It needs to have a darker undertone, a more serious story, and you can really capture the crowd. I think the people who play Forza has grown up. I think they're more mature. I'm not saying that a lot of fans wouldn't like humor. I'm not saying you can't include it. I'm just saying that you should take it into a different direction, different art style. You can keep some of the lore, you can keep some of the cast and characters, but just completely change the format of the game to really give it a fresh coat of paint and really make it something special. And that's something that I think Microsoft's need. They need a plethora of RPGs. They need to diversify their lineup, which is one of the reasons why I love their E3, because I got to see games that I didn't expect on there. Dragon Ball Fighters, Cold Vein, Black Desert. They've really started to work with a lot of PC developers, games like Ashen, games like The Last Night, which is like one of the biggest titles, even for an indie game, that's on my radar because I'm just so impressed with the way it looks. I love what they showed at E3, man. I'm just really impressed with it. And with the Xbox One X coming and being able to play all these games with beautiful graphics and at the best fidelity that they can play at, that really has me excited to be an Xbox fan, to be an Xbox gamer. And I think if you're an Xbox gamer, you should be excited for 2018. The question is, what will Microsoft deliver beyond 2018 with 2019 and 2020? And can they sustain that continuously long term? Because one of the downsides of the Xbox that a lot of fans say is that they always start strong, but then they burn out at the end. And Microsoft can't afford to burn out.
Yeah, because once the C3 comes, like, Microsoft will have nothing left. I mean, you would assume, before we get to E3, Sea of Thieves, Crackdown, and State of Decay, at least 2 of those games will be out by then, right?
I think one's getting delayed for sure. Like,
I have a feeling it's going to be Sea of Thieves.
I think it's going to be Crackdown.
I mean, it could be any 3 of those, to be honest with you.
If Crackdown gets delayed again, that game is canceled.
No, like, they're not canceling Crackdown. I've heard a lot of good things about Sea of Thieves. You know, like, it's coming along extremely well. They have a lot of faith in the product. I could see them potentially moving it to the end of the year to kind of go with Forza Horizon 4 as their big hitters. But I just want to know what's next for, like, we have the hardware. You fixed that for the hardcore, at least, right? The ones who want to spend $500 on an X. You fixed the hardware. You know, you have the services with Xbox Live, back compat, digital game gifting coming soon, all that stuff. Like, you got 2 of the 3 check marks, like, checked. Now you just need, like, more games to check that box, you know? And it's always, what are you supposed to say to people when they're like, well, why should I get an Xbox? And he's like, well, you should get it for these reasons. Well, it's like, well, Sony has Death Stranding, Last of Us 2, Spider-Man, God of War, this game, this game, this game. And there's like, well, what is the future of Xbox? And it's like, well, outside of early 2018, I don't know. It's because Microsoft doesn't tell us. I mean, look at Halo. I mean, you could argue that Xbox is Halo and Halo is Xbox, right? Forever.
Mm-hmm.
But we literally don't know when the next game is.
Right.
And they've said it's going to be quite some time before they're ready to talk about it, which leads me to think they're going to debut it at E3 and Halo's coming out next year. Right? So Halo 6 2019. The way they're talking about
I think 2019. Yeah, 2019.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I would hope 2019. I could deal with that.
But take as long as you need because Halo has to be it can't just be good. It has to be amazing. That is the premier franchise, just in the same way Uncharted is the premier franchise for Naughty Dog. Halo has to return to its former glory. And if it takes 4 years to do it, then take all the time in the world because you can't continuously put out subpar, at least in the view of some people, Halo games. And that's just kind of my opinion on all that.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's the prime example. Microsoft's not giving bad games, but they're giving average games, and that's the issue.
Yeah. I think Microsoft just needs to not feel pressured to put out something. I think what Microsoft tends to do, and reminds me of what happened when that game, what is it called? The 100 Storm, whatever it was that they had with Obsidian that wound up getting canceled, is that they want to try to innovate every game. Every new IP, they want to try to innovate. And sometimes you don't have to. Sometimes you could just make a great game without trying to do something brand new. Everything that comes out doesn't always innovate. Doesn't innovate in any way, but it's a good game. It takes a lot from other games, but it's still unique in its own perspective. And I think if Microsoft is able to figure out that instead of trying to push the envelope with certain things, like making Scalebound 4-player co-op, that was a disaster. Like the first time I saw the game, I was blown away. But then I started looking at the frames dropping. I'm like, imagine putting 3 other dragons of that size on screen with 3 other people. That game was going to be 2 frames per second. Alone was very intensive. I'm just like, it's no way. And they tried to force that issue. Now, there's other undertones that happened with that, why that crashed the way it did. And it's not just Microsoft's fault. It's one of the reasons why Hideki came out and apologized, because listen, we all know Hideki's attitude. And if it really was Microsoft's fault, he ain't apologizing for nothing. But at the end of the day, I think that Microsoft sometimes kind of puts their own foot and kind of stands in their own way. I think they need to get out of their way and really let the developers do what the developers want to do. And they can then really have the potential to have some great things. They stepped in the way with Quantum Break, where Remedy wanted it to make Alan Wake 2. Instead, they wanted Quantum Break. If they would have made Alan Wake 2 instead of Quantum Break, yeah, we would have got a sequel. But I bet you a lot of people would have picked up Alan Wake because there's already a big cult following for Alan Wake. So, sometimes you just got to step out of the way.
In that Game Informer interview, Shannon Loftus described Quantum Break as a phenomenon. Let that sink in for a second there. In the same sentence, she used phenomenon and Quantum Break in the same sentence.
Kind of wasn't.
I mean,
a lot of people are not playing.
She is the head. Listen, she's the head of Microsoft Studios.
Oh, I know.
That is
PR is good at
Microsoft
PR. I get it, but still.
What can she gonna say? What is she gonna say? She has to say it's a phenomenon. She has to use the word. What is she gonna say? It's a good game.
Well, okay. So the question was,
say that.
She was asked. The original Xbox brought us an iconic franchise in Halo. The 360 brought us an iconic franchise in 360 or Gears. Has the Xbox One brought us any iconic franchise? And
Sunset Overdrive was iconic.
Yeah,
and her response was
not good, but iconic.
Well, her response was Quantum Break and Recore.
Recore? She put Recore in there?
It was Quantum Break because it was a phenomenon. You can go
Look
read
at
the
him.
interview.
Cal's completely different
And it
now.
was-
He's like,
and it was
whoa,
Recore.
whoa.
Yeah. So,
I'm gonna have to.
by the way,
me and Shannon got to
Recore
talk.
2 is happening. You're gonna get that.
I
sequel.
already knew that. I knew Recore 2 was happening. Once they
But I'm
made
just
the
saying.
remaster, I knew Recore 2 was happening.
Well, that's the thing. So it's like
I have to.
phenomenon, Cal. Phenomenon.
All right, listen. Okay, I'm with you on that. She didn't have to use the word phenomenon, but I get it. I think they felt like Quantum Break was a unique franchise that maybe went over people's heads. There's a lot of things wrong with Quantum Break. A lot of people weren't feeling the live action thing. They try to do some things differently. It just didn't hit with gamers, unfortunately. I don't know if we'll ever see a new Quantum Break. I feel like
I loved it.
I haven't even finished it, honestly. I'm like halfway through the game. I'm just going to wait for the X to play it again and finish everything.
In an alternate universe, there's a podcast going on now where we're talking about playing Rise 2 and Sunset Overdrive 2 and Quantum Break 2 is getting announced.
Real deep, man. You're getting
like some
real
other
deep.
alternate universe where Microsoft's investments all bared fruit and got sequels.
Oh man, listen, I'm not a fan of. You already know why. Let me not bring up Sunset before Anchor start calling me an old man. But I don't like Sunset over too.
No, tell him why, Cal. Tell him why you don't like Sunset Overdrive.
Sunset Overdrive, I think, is a great game. I think what they've done with the game and what the approach they took is great. I just hate the fact that you have to constantly move to play the game. I find it so annoying that you have to constantly jump, grind, slide, roll, and fire at the same time, constantly to survive in that game. It's the most annoying, nauseating thing about that game. It's just too much. With all those freaking colors, bro, I feel like I'm going to vomit. It's just too much for me. It's the only thing. It's my only gripe with the game. That's why I can't play it. Like, I've played some of it, but I just had to stop because it was too much. But no, funny stuff. But listen, I really hope that Microsoft, I'm glad they're reinvesting in Recore. I think Recore is a special title that they can really push and take it to a whole other limit. I think they need to put a bigger budget behind it. They have what's the name? The writer of Halo on it. I forget his name. I don't know why. It's on the tip of my tongue. Joe Staten. Joe Staten is writing Recore story with his team, so they have the potential to have some quality writing and quality story with the Recore franchise. I think it's one of the franchises that I really hope that they did keep because they don't have a game like it. It's very unique. You're talking about using different bots, platforming, adventure, open world. There's a lot to that game to explore. They just need to fix some of the problems that they have with the game. And I think if they can really push the envelope with the second one, they have potential to have a new franchise on their hands. Quantum Break, I think, needs to completely be the game. I think Quantum Break is a good game. They just need to not add live action cutscenes and just put regular cutscenes in the game and figure out how to have a better cover system and the way you can use your powers so you don't feel so OP. And honestly, they really need a new RPG or a new action adventure franchise. I think if they can get that in rotation with their staple that they already have, they'll be okay. You already have some pretty good indies and Ori and Cuphead. Find more franchises like that to go with your big budget titles, and you might have something special over the next decade. We'll see what happens. So listen, man, that's it for the show. I want to thank everybody for stopping out tonight. Make sure you give us a thumbs up and appreciate all the support, and go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Again, this is Tick Podcast, a Reaver podcast for Xbox. You can catch us on iTunes. If you missed this episode, or if you missed any of our episodes and want to catch up with any of our interviews, you can catch all of that on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher app. We're all over the place. I want to thank Lord Attic for coming out. I want to thank Randall Thor for coming out. Make sure you guys check out Randall Thor and my homeboy Jez Corden from Windows Central on the Xbox 2. And make sure you tune in tomorrow to catch Lord Attic, Lord Saab, Lord King, and of course, Lord Cognito on the Iron Lord podcast on Tit Network at 11 a.m. in the morning, right before football for the Sunday morning show. And the Multiverse show on Mondays, as well as Fame Entertainment and Nicodemus X on 2XP on Wednesdays, I believe that is, on Tick Network, Tuesdays on Fame Entertainment Channel. You can catch me as well individually, Super Pod Shots, on Fridays. So again, man, I want to thank everybody for stopping out. Make sure you get all your video game news from ticgn.com. It is a great place to go. We try to keep up with everything. It's a multi-platform site, so we do cover Xbox, PlayStation, PC, Nintendo Switch, Vita, handhelds. We're doing hardware reviews, all types of great content on there as well. And catch Tick Podcast next week at 10 p.m. Eastern every Saturday. I'm your host, hello, the last on the planet Xbox, where Anchorman V, Brand Al Thor, and of course Lord Attic, and we are off this planet. Thank you guys for stopping out. Peace.